We've got everything going. Thursday, June 30th, the launch of Closer, Spiritual Reflections for Writers and Thinkers by me. That's me. Cool. Well, we'll just be waiting for folks to trickle in here, but let's have at it.
All righty. Let's see. Okay, now I can see it's live. Beautiful.
Perfect. Wonderful. Yeah, learning the delay of everything is good. Everything going. Delay of everything is good. Okay, and I'm looking, I've got live chat up so that there are 4 people viewing. Hey guys.
Woohoo!
Cool. Well, let's get started here as we're welcoming people in.
Beautiful. So we have our first guest coming on in on Facebook Live. We're here on Zoom and Facebook Live with Molly Ovenden for her Closer launch party. So welcome to everyone who is here. We are here at the launch party for Closer, Spiritual Reflections for Writers and Thinkers by Molly Ovenden, who is right there, the lovely lady. My name is Emily Buski, but my friends and family call me Em, which now you all can too. I am a stationery designer and therapist in Green Bay, Wisconsin, but most importantly, today, I get to be a cheerleader and host for our time together as we celebrate my amazing friend, and again, the author of Closer, Molly Ovenden. I've had the pleasure of knowing Molly for almost 5 years, which all started with our shared love of coffee and Jesus and creative adventures. It's been an honor to watch her flourish as a writer over the last few years. Molly Ann Ovenden is a British American, originally from Minnesota. From 2010 to 2017, she lived in West Yorkshire, England, with her bearded furniture making Englishman husband, Max. They moved to northern Minnesota in 2017, which was about the same time we met. And then Molly is a creative writing coach who helps people become the writers they've dreamed of being through courses, community, and coaching. When she's not writing or coaching, though, she is smiling as she is right now, laughing, eating, drinking tea and coffee, painting, daydreaming, training for marathons, which always blows my mind, doing yoga, or going for circular walks. She hopes and prays you really love this book and share it with all of your friends. Again, thank you so much for being here to celebrate Molly and the release of Closer out into the world. So a few housekeeping little things as we get going here and get ready. Please keep your cameras on if you can, so Molly can make some eye contact. She can feel connected by seeing your lovely faces during the party. If you could also keep your mics muted until the Q&A section, that would be awesome. It just removes any potential background noise so we can hear all of Molly's words and wisdom that she has for us today. And last but certainly not least, please type any of the questions for Molly or just comments throughout, right in the comments or the chat, whether you're on Facebook or on Zoom. And by doing that, one simple thing, you get entered to win a signed copy of Closer. So we would love to have you stay for the full party, about an hour here with us if you can. However, if something comes up, or if there is someone who you know cannot be here today, but certainly wishes that they could, we'll be sending out a recording of today's launch party to the Closer insiders. So if you are not an insider yet, I believe Molly or I will pop the link to get signed up in the chat, so you can do that today and be ready to go on all of the latest Closer info. So we will get started very soon. We're just waiting for a few more people to come in. In the meantime, just relax, go grab a drink, something to celebrate with, get comfy. And if you wouldn't mind, by just saying hello in the chat, tell us your name, where you're joining us from, and we can say hello as you come in. Thanks so much. We'll be back shortly.
I have dance music in my head. That's what's happening right now. I am caffeinated, so
You're ready to go.
ready to go. I'm seeing a couple people are popping up live here on the Facebook. Thanks,
Awesome.
Brianna Braun, for the thumbs up. Great to see you. Thanks, Megan. I love you too. Thanks for being here with me, Megan. So good. I do have some sparkle here, sparkling juice, apple and pomegranate, actually. For those of you who are familiar with this book, pomegranate is a little features in the book, so I thought it was appropriate.
The best descriptions, like the best way that I've ever heard a pomegranate described.
Oh, that's great. So it looks like a few more folks. Yeah, Megan, you should get some sparkle too. It is very yum. Hey, Willow. Hi, Laura. Great to see you guys. Thanks for joining and celebrating. Hey, Maggie. Yay, I did it. Thanks for supporting me. This is exciting. So good. Let's see. Hey, Willow, I see you. Yeah, just chilling with the tech, and seeing. This is cool. This is really fun. I have some of you, I see your faces, and some of you, I just see your names, but I love it. I love it all. Oh, Megan, you said you do have some sparkle. That's great. Perfect. Cool. Looks like a few more folks are joining in here. Well, if you want to just greet those who have just joined us, give them the lowdown details, and we are about to get started.
Beautiful. And so Facebook apparently is coming through on your side, but it stopped loading on mine. So we'll just leave all the people on Facebook for you, but they can hear me, so that's what matters. So hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. If you can, give yourselves a little round of applause for being here, for coming. Yes, yes, yes. Maggie, I can see you. And welcome again to the launch party for Closer, Spiritual Reflections for Writers and Thinkers by Molly Ovenden. Hello, welcome to everyone coming on in. My name is Emily Buski, but my friends and family, they call me Em, which you are welcome to call me that as well. I'm a stationery designer and therapist in Green Bay. But more importantly, today I get to be the cheerleader and the host for our time together as we celebrate my amazing friend and the author of Closer, Molly Ovenden. I've had the pleasure of knowing Molly for almost 5 years, which started with a shared love of coffee, Jesus, and creative adventures, which we seem to just do all of that at the same time, somehow, back and forth. And it's been an honor to watch her flourish as a writer over the last few years. So Molly Ann Ovenden is a British American, originally from Minnesota. From 2010 to 2017, she lived in West Yorkshire, England, with her bearded furniture-making Englishman husband, Max. They moved to northern Minnesota in 2017. Molly is a creative writing coach who helps people become the writers they've dreamed of being through courses, community, and coaching. When she's not writing or coaching, though, she is laughing, she is smiling, she's eating, drinking tea and coffee, apparently some sparkly goodness that she has today, painting, daydreaming, training for marathons, plural marathons. There's more than two now, there's three, doing yoga or going for circular walks. So she hopes and prays that you really love this book and that you share it with all of your friends and family. So again, thank you so much for being here to celebrate Molly and the release of Closer out into the world. Today is the day. So a few housekeeping things as we get ready and rolling and more people keep coming in. Please keep your cameras on if you can. So turn those on. Yes, we got a few people on here. It's looking good. So that way Molly can see you so she can feel connected. She can see your smiles, see your faces. It just helps her feel like she's right there with you, even though this is virtual. If you could also keep your mics muted until the Q&A section, that would be awesome too. Just kind of removes any background noise that we might have. So that is super helpful. And last but not least, please type in the chat any comments or questions that you have. That'll be reserved for our Q&A section later on. And bonus, just by commenting anything at any time, you get in to win a signed copy of Closer. So little incentive there for you. And we would love to have you stay for the full party if you can. However, if something comes up, or maybe there's somebody that couldn't be here today, but you know they really wanted to be, we will be sending out a recording of today's launch party to the Closer Insiders. So Molly's already added that link inside the chat. So if you're not an insider yet, just click on that and get signed up and you'll have all of the latest Closer info at your disposal. So we will get started soon, or are you ready to rock and roll, Molly? How are you feeling?
Yeah, I think I keep seeing a few more people tumbling in, so I just give it one sec here and I'm putting the link if you want to join the Closer Insiders.
Beautiful.
There.
Awesome. And while Molly's doing that, for the people who are coming in, if you haven't yet, get cozy, go grab a drink to celebrate. Molly's got her sparkly juice goodness. We got a little LaCroix action happening here. If it's hot, cozy, whatever you need, that is beautiful. And feel free to say hello in the chat and just let us know where you're coming from. We know that there's friends, family, fans from all over the world here today. So we would love to see who you are and where you're coming from so we can say hello.
Oh, you guys, this is so fun. I'm probably gonna cry. This is so great. Maggie, Jody, Julie, welcome. Christina, Eric, Harriet, Rachel, good to see you all. Thanks so much for joining in. Lola, my coach, thanks for coming. So good to see you all. Keith, fellow author, great to have you. Oh, love this. Thanks for being here, you guys. Jody's joining from Cloquet. Willow is from Kansas. Rachel, with your mocha, you're in Duluth. Awesome. That's where I am. Neighbors. Well, yeah, I think let's get started. And if folks do join as we go along, that is more than okay. I think let's do it.
Sounds good. Let's get after it. So welcome again to the launch party for Molly Ovenden's new and latest book, Closer, Spiritual Reflections for Writers and Thinkers. There it is. She's got it there. Beautiful. Again, my name is Em. I'll be your host for the party today. I'm so honored and happy that you could be here, that I could be here, that I get to be with you all for Molly, and that you could join us to celebrate as Closer gets out into the world. So as we get started, please remember to keep your videos on, your mics muted, and leave any questions or comments in the chat. Just keep them coming for Molly to answer at the end. And bonus reminder, anyone that comments a question, remark, anything good, will get in to win the signed copy of Closer. So now it is with great joy that I get to invite my dear sweet friend and published author, Molly Ovenden, to share a few words.
Well, thank you so much, everybody, for coming. This is such a big deal to be able to celebrate and be surrounded by you guys literally all over the world. It's so fun. And it means a lot. It means a lot to be able to share this process of something that is so intangible in my imagination for so many years, to then bring it out into something tangible, that this has my words in it. This was in my brain and now it's in a book and I get to share it with you. And that means a lot. So thanks for joining me in this celebration. And hello, Kara, and hello, Elaine, who just joined in. I just really appreciate you guys taking time to celebrate with me. And, you know, it means a lot for those of you who are authors and writers. You know this. For those of you who aren't, to be able to mark this time in celebration with an author, it's such a gift, because this is how we can connect. We connect through the words, but now we're connecting with pixels and faces, and it's just such a treat to be able to really mark this time of, this is day zero, you know, of this book's life as it's in the world, and you're here celebrating that and marking that with me. And it means a lot that already this book is a good use of my time to have spent years working on it, and that we're connecting. So that just makes my heart really happy and makes my eyes a little bit wet, tearing up a little bit. So thanks. Yeah, how this book really came to be is, it started as really like a journaling practice. And as I started sharing different things that I was experiencing through everyday life, sharing them with friends, with family members, and they were interacting with it as I just shared my stories over coffee and just chatting. And as I did that over the years, as I grew as a writer in confidence, calling myself a writer, it started to feel like, I think there's something more to this. I think this is something that I need to actually share with people. Maybe it's not just for me anymore. And so I made that transition, and it took a long time. There are some false starts. I wasn't as resilient as I am now. I looked into different ways of getting it out there, and it's scary when you put what's in your brain out for the world to see. Will they like it? Will they think I'm weird? All of that. And so that took a long process to feel confident in doing that. But now I'm pumped. This is an excellent book, you guys. I did a really good job, and I'm really glad that I get to share it with you. And I'm super proud of it and excited for just how this is opening the floodgates of my author career and just this next stage of venture. So that's a little bit of that. Just really, wish I could just hug y'all. So feel the hugs, feel the hugs. Yeah, I wanted to share a little excerpt from this as well. So I don't just like coffee and sparkle. I also really like tea. And so I wanted to share an excerpt from my book about tea. So each is a reflection, and I say like on, and then the thing that it's about. So this one is on tea. So it's reflecting, thinking on tea. And so I wanted to start there. Let me grab the page here. And welcome to Family Peters who've just joined. Thanks for joining. Great to have you. Okay. I should have marked the pages, but I'm just flicking through my book. So, because I have a book now, I can find the page to read from. Okay. So this is on tea. I love tea. Drinking it, smelling it, learning about it, looking at it. I love tea things too. Fragile china teacups and saucer, teaspoons, the small plates where you set your tea bag. Tea bags, the packets the tea comes in, boxes of tea, tins of tea, tea timers, tea cozies, tea kettles, teapots, tea caddies, tea mugs, tea cakes, scones, muffins, cookies, biscuits, tiny triangular cucumber sandwiches with the crusts cut off, tea strainers, tea infusers, tea shops, iced tea, tapioca pearls, boba, hot tea lattes, oolong, green tea, black tea, herbal and fruit infusions, rooibos, yerba mate, jasmine. My absolute favorite place to go for tea is not too far from where I grew up. My mom and I would go there often, and we've learned a lot about tea from the owners. One thing we learned is there are certain time limits in which you must steep your tea. The longer the tea or tisane infuses or steeps, the stronger, more flavorful, or in some cases, the more bitter it becomes. With herbal and fruit infusions, the longer you leave the bag in the water, the more flavor and intensity you'll get from it. While being in God's presence can be enjoyable, like with tea, God is unlike the teas. Overbrewing some teas turns into a bitter drink. When we spend extended time brewing in God's presence, we become a better flavor. We can spend all our precious time steeping and dwelling in his presence, and we'll never become bitter, but we'll become more and more fragrant as he fills us up with his presence. We can be steeped, fraught with, and overflowing with the Holy Spirit and his goodness. We can have the Holy Spirit coming out of our pores. We can breathe in and smell of him as the water does with all the variety of teas. As people of God, we can easily bring people into God's presence when we're full of the Holy Spirit. When we waft a refreshing and comforting fragrance with each interaction, it can be transformative for us and others. So that was from On Tea. Oh, I love tea. I really do. So I can read some more excerpts as we go on, but I would love to be able to answer some questions. And so if you do have questions, particularly anything related to the book, the process, whatever, put those in the chat and we can address them. And otherwise, you have some questions for me.
I'm ready to go for you, a little
Yeah.
Q&A section. So let's just start with the very front cover as you held it up and we saw it. On that cover, first front and center is the title.
Yes.
So could you explain a little bit of your process for coming up with the title? Was it always this title? Like where did that come from?
Yeah, it was not always called Closer. In fact, for about 10 years, it was called On the Pot, as in a slang term for the toilet, because I felt like this was like my reflections, like dealing with stuff that I felt like God was teaching me. And I was like, man, where else do you like do nothing else when you're on the toilet? So like that's when you have time to like reflect on stuff. And so I called it On the Pot for a really long time. My mom never liked that title, and I I realized that it's probably not the best title, even though I thought for a long time, wouldn't it be cool to have like this beautiful like clean white porcelain toilet with like these white tiles and like white walls and everything. That was what my cover was going to be in my brain, for my imagination, for like 10 years. And then December 1st, 2021, when I felt like you got to get this sucker out, Molly, you just have to move on. It's like, okay, I can't name it after a toilet. And so I just felt, you know what? All of this stuff in here is about looking closer, not with a magnifying glass, but just paying attention, paying attention more closely, noticing things up close. And so I just thought this whole process has drawn me closer to God as I've reflected. And for a while, there were just some questions to reflect on, but they weren't as intentional as they are now. And in my work as a coach, I realized this is a real miss if I don't bring it full circle. So I share my story. I show how we're connected, reader and writer. And then I offer these questions for reflections and a writing prompt to come full circle. I felt like as a creative writing coach, it would be a disservice to my readers if I don't add that piece in as well and help you begin to write, whether it's a journal or ends up being in a book or for something else. But that felt really important. So yeah.
Well, I love that even what you're able to offer people as a coach, like you're putting that into practice, which I feel is a sign of a really good coach. So good on you for that. And as you're talking about this image of the toilet, right? It has segued from that and improved and evolved. But you mentioned this idea of it's not a magnifying glass either. So the image on the front, though, is of these big binoculars. So could you speak a little to how you chose the image to go right along with the title as well?
Yeah. So Ufta, cover design. Let's just say that's a whole art form in itself. And I thought just because I had never done it before that it was hard, but I talked to some graphic designers who have experience designing covers, and they said, yeah, Molly, this is a really tricky brief. This is like not an easy tackle to tangibly express a physical concept with a spiritual concept in one visual eye-catching image that looks good as a postage stamp on the internet. It's like, okay, good. This isn't just me not getting it. And so I had a lot of conversations, and so I'm a visual artist as well. And at first I thought, oh, well, that makes sense. I'll just put some of my art as the background. And so I threw a few different ideas out for folks following. Some of you commented on these, and you loved them. You loved my art, and that was really cool. And I felt loved by that. And then I started realizing that you loved my art because it was my art, not because it had anything to do with what the book was about. And so that disconnect started kind of feeling, well, a disconnect. And so I thought, this is just not working. And then I started, well, that's when I kind of shut down for a little bit for a couple of weeks. I don't know how to design my cover. Maybe I should have just hired somebody. I need to learn how to do it myself. Oh yeah, my friend is a graphic designer. I wonder what he thinks. So I just asked for help, and Anthony helped talk me through different ways of thinking about it. And I came to realize that, yeah, it's not a magnifying glass. We're not inspecting things here, but what this journey feels like is a journey. So when you go to a beautiful vista, you have these binoculars you put on your coin, and it opens up to this wide open view. So either inside a city you can see from high up for miles, or at the top of a mountain, or at the edge of the water. And I felt like to bring something so far away up closer to be able to interact with it, that felt like that works for what this book is. Sometimes God can feel, and all spiritual things can feel, just like so far away. But with the binoculars, with this book, I hope we're able to look far out at something and kind of see the next bit of the journey. And often on these paths with these binoculars, there are other binoculars along the journey, and so you can kind of see where your path is for a little while, and it brings you closer to where you're getting. And I hope that in your journey as a spiritual reflector and a writer, thinker, that this book functions that way.
It's so fun to hear you talk about the journey as a writer and a thinker and someone who's spiritual, and then just hearing the journey of going from a different title to a different photo for the entire cover design. How about the book as a whole? So when you wrote Closer, how similar is it now, the book as a whole, to when you first began writing it? Because you said it's been a decade in the making, but December 1st was go time.
Yeah.
So bring us into that process a little bit too.
Yeah. So, like I think I mentioned a little bit before, it started out as really just little bits and pieces of reflecting on my own for my own faith interaction relationship with God. And so it started as little blitz thoughts while I'm walking, or a lot of it I actually wrote in my head while I was working in a machine shop in an assembly line. I was a tiny bit faster than the machine that I was working on, and my boss allowed me to have a pad of paper so I could write ideas down. And so I wrote just blips of ideas and let it settle. And as I then went home and wrote more and more, it developed into there's something here. And each time I felt like there's something here, then more opened up. And then as I shared this journey of like, oh, I was thinking about this thing, and I wrote some stuff down, and I realized it was for other people. So then I began to think about these people for whom my stories were impactful. And I thought, how could I write this with them in mind so that it is more of a conversation and not just my internal thoughts pouring out, but to be more intentional about it. And so over the years, and definitely in December, I really, really, really honed, and I worked with an editor, and I just tightened it up as much as I could to be just really intentional that you as the reader will experience it as something that's for you, as opposed to just getting inside Molly's brain, but something that's more helpful. So yeah.
So taking it from almost like your own journal and then incorporating ways that the reader can make it meaningful to them and then write their story a little bit too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, you could have just kept it for yourself, right? Kept the journal, kept it in. And you said as you started sharing, you noticed something happened. So,
Mhm.
what was your motivation for actually getting it published? Because there's thinking about a book, there's writing a book, and then there's actually publishing it and being at the point of launching it into the world. So, you're there now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what was the
Yeah.
motivation to get to that point?
It felt like I was in a kind of in a dam, just stopping creative flow. It felt like this is something really big that in order to overcome a lot of people in the creative sphere and other places, but describe like imposter syndrome.
Mm.
And so here I am coaching. Here I am trained as a middle school and high school English teacher. I can help people write. I can help people learn how to communicate. I can help people become the writer they're made to be. I do that. And I see some of you here. I know that I've helped come alongside you, and I've done that with you. And so I know that I can do that. So in that process of the privilege of coming alongside clients and students for a number of years, I realized that my own journey, I was overcoming a lot of identity things surrounding being creative and expressing through writing. And that's really good. Like writing for the sheer joy of it's really good. And I felt like I'm at the point where I'm not simply a writer who writes for the sheer joy of writing. I'm a writer who publishes regularly. I'm a writer who gets her words out to make a positive impact on the world. And so, as I took the actions of being the writer that I was, my identity morphed into now I'm an author.
And even just to hear you own that as a part of your identity is so cool and a huge part of your journey. Um, so let's like stay there for just a little bit. So, what has God specifically taught you about your identity in Him while writing this book?
Yeah. It's an interesting one because, oh man, even today, as it's officially launched, as Closer is officially launched into the world, into the wild, I am feeling a confidence alongside a hesitancy. So I wonder what certain people will think of certain pieces that I've shared in my book. I'm sharing my story. It's like we're sat chatting together with a coffee or a tea or a sparkle, and I'm sharing what it's like as a thinker. And I have I have a lot of thoughts, and I often process my thoughts out loud. And in some ways, that's what this book is. But it can be a scary place to, um, thinking about readers for whom I cared so deeply. And there will likely, because we're humans and different humans, there will likely be things that some of my readers might disagree with or be offended by my story because of my faith, because of a viewpoint that I have, because of, I don't know, something. And so that's the hesitancy. And yet for me, my faith is so personal. My identity is in God. I am a daughter of the King of Kings. I'm deeply loved by my heavenly Father, and that's what's important. And regardless of what other people think of me or my work, like, my safety is in that. And also, I know if I want to be the writer I'm made to be, identity and habits go hand in hand. And I hope that anybody who might disagree with what or think like, hey, you missed a typo or whatever, which I have found one, which is funny, so look for that one. Anyway, it just like those little imperfections. And I just feel like if anybody has that disagreement or whatever, I don't have to worry about that. But I hope that this would open a conversation, right? Like, I hope that this would be the beginning of a conversation. And I just love talking with people. I find people fascinating, and I love hearing other people's beliefs. And I think that's what's part of what makes life so extraordinary, is being able to connect with other people. And so that's really, I feel, part of what God has taught me through this, is like, where is my identity? Yes, it's in God. And so much because of that, I'm creative. And so then I use writing to create connections with other people and to create experiences. And so it's really, I feel like, spiraled around, circled around, and kind of just ingrained that with me.
And anytime you use the vision of a circle, it just makes me happy because I know how much you love circles in
Love
general.
circles.
So, yes. Well, and with the type of circle, there's a type of flow, not only to building those habits and to building the identity, but also an intentional flow with the pieces that you put in each chapter, and how you can kind of go like a light story, but then you dig in deep, but then you come back to like the scripture, and then you get to a part where they can write their own story. So did you have a particular order in mind that you wanted the devotional or those pieces to be in? And what was that process like?
To some extent, I did have an order once I saw what I had. So there are a number of other pieces like the 30 that made it into this book. There's a number of others, but these 30 felt like, kind of like, they go together in a season of life, perhaps. And I started with On Dreaming. It's about reflecting on seeing the sculpture The Thinker in Paris. And that felt appropriate to be the opening piece for this, as we're thinkers. And I really wanted to separate any that felt too similar from each other. I wanted to kind of take the reader on the journey of, let's think about things from a lot of different angles. And so there are a couple pieces that in my brain, they're fairly similar. And so I tried to space them out. Whether or not the reader would actually think that they were similar is, who knows. But I just did it in a way that felt like there was a flow, and like you said, some more serious, some more silly, and tried to create just that flow of steadiness there.
Well, and even in choosing those final 30. Like it feels like there was more at first and then paring it down. Did you have a favorite, like one that was the best to write and is currently your favorite to read, or like which maybe your top three? I don't know if one is even possible to choose. But.
Yeah, so as per my previous explanation of the title, On Cleaning the Toilet is one of my favorites to have written, because of what it was originally called, the idea that you would read my book whilst being in the toilet. But it was also just kind of a funny one. So it's about just looking, well, I had to go to the bathroom real bad. Sorry, Mom. I had to. I was in my friend's house and she wouldn't shut up. She was talking so much. I had to go so bad. And she was telling me how she was like nervous about how dirty her bathroom was and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I'm going to have an accident right here. It's going to get a lot worse if you don't let me go in. And so it was just funny. Like, how do I write this in a way that feels humorous, but also is like not inappropriate? So that was just kind of funny, writing that one. And then the on the Whistling Man, there was such a beautiful piece that still feels surreal to me. So I'll give you a little blip of it. One of the first flat I lived in when I first moved to England, every day at about the same time, I heard whistling in the park and I could not figure out where it came from. And I would look out the window and I would hear it and it would just be there and it was the happiest whistling. It was so much fun. And I just was on this quest to find out where the whistling came from. And so some days I would hear it and I'd be like, oh, and I'd like run and jump up on the counter, like, can I see him? Or her, I don't know, can I see the whistling? And just being able to write that mystery and the joy that it brought me every day of not knowing. And then I started talking to people and they were like, oh yeah, I've seen that man. I'm like, oh, it's a man. And just like, it's a very surreal, imaginative, childlike experience. So writing it just really felt really good. Yeah.
Well, it's so cool too how like you're able to draw these parallels from these like tiny moments that you can elaborate on and then parallel it with something very spiritual for people to dig deeper into God's word and to know who he is. Another parallel that you have alluded to in your most recent episode of your podcast, Project Perseverance, was some potential parallels between writing closer and running a marathon. As we stated already, you've had a few under your belt at this point. So would you be willing to share maybe just a few of those similarities and parallels versus writing and marathoning?
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks for the plug for my podcast, Project Perseverance. It's in process. It's one of those imperfect things. And so that actually does tie in. Perseverance doesn't mean that things are polished and lovely and perfect, but it's keeping going with a solid desire for the process and toward that goal, but allowing the transformation to happen. And so persevering. Yeah. Running, writing, for me, persevering, it's a lifelong commitment. I feel called to run my own race, not compare to other people. I feel that consistency is really important. It's a lot. I can run a marathon. I can walk a marathon. It takes a long time, but I can do that. I can get a lot of words out in a 24-hour writing session, which is silly, but doable. But then there's that lifelong desire for my life, I'm a writer. For my life, I'm a runner. And that consistency seems to point toward healthy habits And then also just a delight in the process, like I said before, but with a grand celebration at the finish. Like even when your leg hurts and you're super sweaty and you got like nasty snacks left in your water pack, and you still just put your arms up and you're like, I did it. I'm winning at life. And that's what this feels like. It's a long go. Sometimes where you go really fast, sometimes where it slows down, sometimes you feel like, I mean, do I need to do this? And then the decision to keep going. So those are some of the parallels.
Well,
And yeah, I was going to say, and a little insider info. This is perseverance is a concept that I'm exploring more. So there will be more writing about perseverance coming up, just as an FYI.
well, and not only are you persevering through marathons and your writing, but you also help your writing clients persevere and write and get their books from brain to page. So what advice do you have for them or anyone here who might not be your client but wants to write? Like how can they actually go from getting those words from brain to page?
Yeah, I would say, first of all, start really small. You don't run a marathon safely by just going for it today. That can be a really discouraging and injury provoking place to be. And I think same with like the writing life. To do too much too soon is a great way to burn out and hate the thing that you're meant to love. And so I always recommend to students and clients 10 minutes, start with 10 minutes once a week, and just sit down and enjoy writing for 10 minutes. And yeah, that just start small and then celebrate that, because you're building on a lifetime. And then, as I mentioned, for my own journey, I just see identity and habits go hand in hand. And so think about, what kind of writer do you want to be? And then what are the things that that writer would do? And then start doing them in a consistent way. And consistent doesn't mean every single day, but in a allow yourself to rubber band or elastic band your way back to that. When you know who you are as a writer, you're going to do those things. And the more you do them, there's a cycle of coming back to it again and again. And so start small and allow yourself to grow into the writer you're made to be, a little bit at a time.
Well, and all of your little bits at a time led to this book that we're celebrating today. So as you're talking about helping your clients celebrate their little successes, this is a really big success that we get to celebrate today. So now that Closer is published and the readers are just devouring your words, what happens next for you?
Yeah, I'm so excited because starting in July, a focus for me is really booking, scheduling tour, a book tour sort of thing. So I'm starting out with media sort of tours through other podcasts of folks who may benefit from this. So I'll be reaching out to lots of podcasts over the next month and getting those scheduled for the next few months. And then that's July. Then August, I'm looking at booking physical in person and also virtual tours to help people write, as well as celebrate this great book that I wrote. And so, yeah, just this is the birthday of Closer coming into the world. And so it's just really, this is really just ramping up into getting to share it with more and more people. And I hope inspire people in the process.
Are there any other books on the horizon as you're really like unleashing the floodgates here?
Like a million D. I'm so I'm so excited. And a couple of weeks ago, my specific creative writing coach encouraged me to celebrate. And I was really resistant against that. And then I began celebrating by taking a walk, slowing down, and I just on a walk got like 25 new ideas for the next one, which will probably be called Further. But I do, like I said, there were some that didn't quite make the cut of this one, and I have lots of ideas with that. I've just a couple weeks ago did my 3rd marathon, and I spent some of that time sweating alongside people who were persevering with me, and I asked them for their thoughts on perseverance. And that's why I started a podcast, Project Perseverance, to be looking at why do we keep going, and how do we develop that persevering muscle. And so I'll be interviewing perseverance experts, some authors, some just generally perseverance is a big topic. And so there are a lot of people who push through to the end and finish strong. And so yeah, there's a lot coming up. And I certainly, as a coach, and another shout out to my coach, Lola Graham, love you so much. You've been such a support for me getting this out. And I've realized that I have a lot to say about helping people get their words out. And so I've been inspired watching Lola and her husband, Josh, my also coach, of how they have just kept persevering forward and overcome a lot to be able to make the amazing impact on the people that they are surrounded by, that they're coming into lives of, and seeing how the written word is a really great way to connect with people. And so I think something related to my creative writing coaching journey is, I mean, I can't not write about that, I feel like. So something will probably come there.
Well, we will stay tuned as you just keep up with all of the ideas. And where would be the places that we can know first and foremost, whether it's what's coming out for your next books, whether it's your podcast, where can people stay connected to as we kind of finish up this Q&A session?
Yeah, totally. So if you want help with writing, check out my free Facebook group, Become the Writer. It's a great introduction of what it's like to work with me. If you want to know more about creativity, joy in general, my website, mollyovenden.com, is an increasingly helpful place with more and more resources and thoughts. If you like my thoughts, check out my website for more. And especially as I'm working on these different opportunities that are coming to the forefront, I'll be sharing more and more there. And that will also have links to if you want to subscribe on my email list and have different writing inspiration there, and know more about my podcast. Basically, mollyovenden.com is a great place to see what's happening.
Beautiful. That's where we'll head. All right. Well, that does it for the initial questions. I don't know if you want to get into some more reading before the other questions from the guests, but over to you, leading the way.
Yeah, I think I'm not seeing a ton of questions in the chat. And so either you don't have any, or we did just an excellent job answering all of the questions. But I will, I'll read one more, and then we can talk about where to buy the book.
Sounds good.
Cool. So which one did I say I was going to read here? I got it. This one is called On Rascal. Rascal sells magazines to tourists and other shoppers of the downtown area. People like Rascal are bound by addiction and bad circumstances. Lying and deceit, driven by any addiction, is usually what grips their entire being. Sometimes he wanders the street away from the city and tries to panhandle his stories of misfortune, and tells those who give him a penny that they have somehow restored his faith in humanity. The irony in this situation is that Rascal tells this same elaborate story of lies without being conscious of telling lies or doing anything wrong. And these lies have become his way of life. For any of us who help and know the reality of Rascal's story, we actually may need our faith in humanity to be restored, or maybe we just need our faith in God amplified. Sometimes I think we can get lost in a story of our own misfortune. We fabricate this tale to get pity from friends, relatives, strangers, ourselves, or even God. But God knows our hearts, and he knows Rascal's heart. No matter what we hide from God intentionally or not, God knows our thoughts from far away, and there's no place we can go to get away from his presence. God undoubtedly knows exactly what we're up to at any point in time, and he is always around us, whether we acknowledge him or not. So let's stop trying to leave him. He already knows what's up, wants to help us more than we want to help ourselves. So will we allow God in our lives in this moment, so together we can turn our lives around to be closer to God and really know him? Thanks so much. So I love that one. It is kind of a collection of a number of people that I've encountered in my time living in downtown in the city center in Leeds, England, and West Yorkshire, but also just encountering people holding signs and just recognizing we're more the same than I think we realize sometimes, people that we cross paths with. And it's super easy to get in a rut of negativity, and it takes time to come out of it. But I believe that with God's help, we can, and also with community, we can. So yeah, that one is a near and dear to my heart, and I can still see some of those people. Well, let's see. A couple of people have asked where to purchase the book. Yes, please. So I would love to invite you to purchase a copy and leave an honest review. So I will put the one thing here in the chat. And so if you want a digital copy, Amazon, you can get it on your Kindle, and I'll put the link here in the chat for that. And the other thing that I will say is, if you want a print copy, there are a number of places that you can get a print copy, pretty much wherever books are sold, which is super fun to get to say that. I've been Googling my name and the title, and I'm like, ooh, it's there too. That's my book. It's very fun. And so I have a few links here. I am very blessed to have friends all over the world. And so I have a few different links for my American friends. Here is Barnes and Noble. For Australian friends, here's Booktopia. And for UK friends, here is Eden Books. So I'll pop those links in the chat. And of course, like I said, there are many other places that it is available, but those are some starting points. So that's primarily it. I did see one question. Rachel, you asked, where do you get your inspiration from? It's a great question. Everywhere. But it's really allowing everyday occurrences to happen and to notice them. And so, like the other day, I was on the deck and I saw this little inchworm thing. I don't know if it's an inchworm, but I watched this little caterpillar green little guy and just like noticed where the feet were, and I watched its body just move. I was like, I think there's something here. I'm going to keep watching. And so just even moments like that just noticing. And a lot of times I feel like I'm 5 years old. And so I just embrace my 5-year-oldness and watch things. And I'm like, ooh, this is fun. And then if it sticks with me, then it's got some traction, and then I start writing about it. Sometimes I talk to people, and if people are responding in a way that it feels relatable, then that's inspiring, kind of bouncing the ideas off others as well. So, yeah. Well, I think that's about it. Did you have any other questions, or did you see any other questions in the chat or the comments?
I think that is it for questions.
Sweet.
Got them all.
Amazing. Well, thank you again so much, everybody, for coming along and celebrating. I'm just, over the moon that you're here to celebrate with me, and it makes my heart happy and reassures me that I made a good decision. And so I just want to raise a jam jar of sparkle to you all and say cheers, happy reflecting, happy writing, happy thinking, and happy reading of Closer. That's so good. That's a yummy apple pomegranate right there. Awesome. Well, that's it, folks. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for being with me and hosting. And like we said, if you want more information, mollyovenden.com is a good place to be, or the free Facebook group, Become the Writer. That's also a great place to be. And look for Closer, Spiritual Reflections for Writers and Thinkers anywhere that books are sold. And I will be very happy to share it with you. And book tours are coming in person and virtually. So if you do want to help me organize one, or you have some ideas of places to go, or podcasts or connections that you feel like, ooh, I know some people who would really love this, let's talk. Let's get there. Yeah, that's it. Thank you, everybody. Thanks so much for joining. Until next time, happy writing. Bye-bye.